if the people, so let's say for now,
It depends on how they
the
want it set up.
well, no, so like if say it's a two-tier web application, you guys, you've been watching Stefan's mentioned some basic software architectures to like an in-tiered web application. Like so you could have like a three-tier is common where you have the presentation layer, the application logic layer, and then the data layer. So the presentation layer and the application logic layer are sometimes combined. So then you have just two layers. You have like the application layer and the data layer. Data layers where like your databases are and maybe like long-term storage buckets and stuff like that. And then your application layer is just where your what your software is running. So in this context, we could have a two-tier web application. We could have the application running in these auto scaling groups, and then we have our RDS database cluster in Japan. And so when requests come in, typically each tier is what you would say is segmented from each
Mhm.
other, meaning only like each tier can only talk to the tier above it or below it. So like
Mm.
in a three-tier application, that means presentation layer can only talk to the application layer. Application layer can only talk to the data layer, and then vice versa. The presentation layer can't just jump over a layer or something like that. Um, it's a little simpler, obviously, with a two-tier application, but same idea. Like you go into the application layer, and then only the application layer can talk to the data layer. Just regular users can't talk to the data layer at all. Only the application gets to. So that's how I would say is the easiest way to imagine this. And I made an application, and I could show you guys later that actually is like that running on our infrastructure. Might help visualize it, and we can talk about what's happening. But basically, um, say it's like medical records. We have records in the database, and then we have the actual record application that people open when they load the website, and that's in the auto scaling group. So
Mhm.
it would be we have users on the outside of the cloud.
Mhm.
They type in a web address. The
Mhm.
web address sends the traffic to the internet gateway, maybe using like Route 53 if it was, set up with the domain. You guys remember doing that with the custom domains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, but we it could just be the application load balancer's DNS address though. But like if it were a company, it would be the DNS. But hits the internet gateway, then it goes to load balancer. The load balancer figures out, depending on how, just like the least busy EC2 to send you to, because it's balancing the traffic. Then it sends you to that EC2 in the auto scaling group, and every one of the EC2s is running the same application. And then you say you have to sign into the application. Well, the application will then, once you put in your sign in info, it's going to send your sign in info to the database. You don't get to send your sign in info to the database, the application sends it.
Mhm.
Then it checks the database and it goes, okay, I load the table with the sign in info. Is are these in here? And then let's say they are, then it comes back to the application and it checks and it knows that they are. So then it redirects you to a different page that you're signed in now, and you can see the records. Say you want to load like Susie's records, then that sends another request to the database. The application sends it though, and it opens Susie's records, and then it sends it back to the application. The application uh, formats the records so that they're nice and easy to read in the website, and you can see the records. And so that's what's happening.
Why you
For
ain't just
our,
say that from the beginning?
I know, I know. I just wanted to confuse you.
Real quick, fellas. I don't know how this gonna turn out, but I'm recording now. I'm gonna record to the end of the session. and I'll try to find some way to upload it on YouTube, depending on the quality of how it is. So that's it.
Okay.
Continue.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, good sir. So yeah, with this kind of setup here, which I think is it's a good way to think about it, is now our company wants to be global though. It doesn't just want to be in Japan because it obviously we could just be thinking about Japan. We could have our application running in the auto scaling groups in Tokyo, and the database could be in Osaka, and everything works well. But the entire world wants to access our medical record application because it's so good. So we need to start creating auto scaling groups across the world. But we don't want to replicate our data in every region because there are compliance, uh, like regulations, laws for data. Uh, and so we're going to keep all of, especially if it were Japanese health records, we're keeping all of those in Japan. We're not replicating it outside. And so we now need a way for every region to be able to talk to Japan privately, not through the internet. Because we could just let the applications traverse the public internet to get to the database if we let the database be publicly accessible. But that would mean that the records go over the public internet, which is probably again against the compliance and regulation laws. Like sometimes you guys that'll be like you'll hear it as like GRC, governance regulations compliance. I think is the acronym, but um, won't let you do that. So what we do is we make it so that only the applications can talk to the database, and the database has the settings where publicly accessible is disabled. So internet can never AWS will never let something on the public internet talk to the database. But we need all 7 of our auto scaling groups to be able to talk to this database. So this is where we start setting up the transit gateways. And the transit gateways will take all the auto scaling groups traffic that want to talk to the database, and it'll route it correctly into Japan. And it'll all stay in AWS cloud. If it all stays in AWS cloud, then AWS will encrypt it automatically, and nobody on the internet gets to see the traffic. So that's why we have it set up like this. So that means go to a different region.
Sure.
So this is New York. So somebody's in New York. They're using our application, and they want to look up somebody's records. So they go through the internet gateway, go through the application load balancer. Load balancer sends it to one of the EC2s in the auto scaling group. They log in. So their credential. So then the application queries the database. So now let's follow this. It's going to go through the transit gateway, and then it's going to go follow the line for the transit gateway down. It's going to go to the left into this transit gateway, and then it's going to go down. The route table will tell it where it needs to go. So it's going to go to the left. Well, actually, this diagram, like I said, it's missing this. It would actually, there should be another line. It can go down. Just imagine there's another line down to the left into this database right here.
Okay.
And then it would check the database and go, okay, are those records there? Those username and password? If it's yes, then we'll go back to the New York region through the transit gateway. Yeah, it's to the right, up and then it's going to get sent to the transit gateway, then down through the route table, back to the auto scaling group. The auto scaling group will go, okay, we have these credentials, these user credentials in the database, so I'm going to send this user to the page, the web page where they're logged in. I mean, and probably more in a production environment, they would actually like save a cookie to their web browser that keeps them logged in. And then there they could look at records, and then it would be the same process. When they want to download a record, they would choose a record. The application would go and send a request to the database, and the database would respond with the record, and then the application in the auto scaling group would load the records in the web page, the website. So now thinking a little bit in the future, say we have like we have these 7 regions, right? And that means that we have seven different load balancers, right?
Yeah.
That means we have seven. Wow, seven's hard to say today. 7 different DNS addresses for the load balancers, right?
Mm.
Do we
Yes.
want our end user to have to decide which DNS address to use?
No.
No.
Okay. Anyone have an idea of how we can make this real easy?
AWS will pick it for you.
How can we make AWS do that?
Tell them to do that.
How?
Um,
If it was that
Mm.
easy, we would never have jobs.
To the command line.
But what service?
databases.
DNS Route 53.
Right. DNS Route 53.
Where the hell did that come from? Oh
Good
my
job.
goodness! Oh
So,
God!
so say, what do we want the name of our company to be?
Dunder Mifflin Cloud Company.
That's actually what my domain is. I don't know if you guys have seen it,
Oh no,
but
I have not seen it.
it's dundermifflincloudcompany.click. Uh, so yeah, so that's our domain. Then we would make records, a records, and we would use now here. Open up your AWS console. I'll show you this real quick.
Hold on, I'll bring up my phone. Let's see, where's get my Google Authenticator. Where are you? Authenticator. Okay, now where is? All right, it is Google Authenticator. Okay. How about that? It's on Safari. Let's make a new one. Okay. AW. Make it bigger.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
Sign into the console. Okay.
Here, give me 1 second, guys.
Uh, did you want me to use an IM user or use the root user? I'm sorry. Take your time. I'm sorry.
Speaking of which, fellas, I'm about to pause and restart the recording because I want to make sure I got the right resolution.